Hello, friends. Welcome to a new episode of the podcast Merging Minds powered by BureauWorks. Today, I am extremely excited because today we have in today's episode one of my favorite localization industry leaders, Veronique Özkaya. Veronique has over 20 years of professional experience in the industry. She has expertise in the industry in helping clients grow their market share in those international markets. She's passionate about delivering high quality solutions to clients, a very, very client focused professional with a huge background in international negotiations, a significant track in mergers and acquisitions and human resources, fluent in several languages, living away from where she was born. Hi, Veronique.
Hello,
Are you
Javi.
here with us?
I'm good. I'm blushing hearing this intro. Thank you so much. And it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You did this all. I didn't do anything. It was just you. I am honored to be here. Like, I believe in always having interesting guests who have interesting journey to share with our audience, right? And you are definitely one of these people. A lot of friends from the industry have always spoken wonders about you. They've always told me you got to introduce Veronique. She's an amazing people person. She's one of the best leaders I've worked with. So hello, welcome.
Well, God, wow. Now that's like a big mountain to climb, but I really appreciate it.
No, it's a real honor. And today I invited you because I would love to tell your story. You have a very interesting story. You have a very a wide background, not only localization, but a beautiful story. You're telling me about before a little bit, like how you got started, right? But first of all, I want to ask you, where are you from, Veronique? Where were you born?
So I was born in France. My father is French, and my mother is half Dutch, half Belgian. So
Oh
that's,
wow,
but yeah,
that's
so already a little bit of an international household, but
you
northern
left.
France. So, very close to the border.
Yeah, you left home a long time ago. I mean, myself, I did it
Right.
15 years ago. So yeah.
And I mean, the thing with being born in a kind of a smallish town, the only thing I
Yeah.
wanted to do, and I love my town, don't get me wrong. I just wanted to get away. I wanted to see the world. So I studied 800 kilometers away from home in Grenoble, towards the south of France. And then when I got an opportunity to do Erasmus, I grabbed it, went to Ireland at the time. So always have a bit of a travel bug. And right now I'm currently based in Turkey, but I'm in different locations,
I love it.
given time of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, from my family side, my father studied in the south of France too. We're Spanish, but they
Oh,
studied in the south of France. So that's where we all click, right? In this industry, the part that I like the most is that a lot of the people here, somebody that comes from here, that is moving here, that is working there, right?
and I think it's the beauty of like the world coming together. Really, the industry is a great example of that. And you go to any event and you have literally friends of the industry that come from any country. I think we can still be even more inclusive and broaden
Yeah,
our reach. But it's a good example. Let's be
yeah.
fair.
So can you? I mean, I want to start. I mean, one of the things that I want to touch upon today is like the one thing that I've been asked from friends, and is building a high performance team. I know you have a lot of experience, and you might not share today. But before we get to that, we need to dig
Mhm.
deeper into how you got started, right? Because your background is you told us a little bit about this, but you were also in the diplomatic career for some time.
Yeah, I'm a great example of a failed diplomat, Javi. So I studied diplomacy, actually international relations and applied languages, and I wanted to make a career either at the UN or at the EU. My first job was at the French embassy in Dublin, and in that job, I realized after a few months that it was just not. It was a casting error. It was not a good fit for me. I was, let's put it this way, this was like, there was not a fast pace. It was not changing. It was very much stuck in the past. In my view, and I thought I'm not a good fit here. So I quit, and I had to do some small jobs to like teaching French, teaching business French, and other things to keep going until I found an opportunity in localization. And at the time, I was at the right place. Um, we talk sometimes about luck. I think you create your luck. I'm not a firm believer in luck, but being in Dublin in the kind of mid to late 90s, when a lot of software publishers were starting to set up localization teams there, it was good timing, good place. So I actually got a job as a translator editor, but that was not my background. So I had no clue. And I was given a test translation to do. When I looked at the English, I was like, oh man, I understand nothing. It was all technical. I hadn't touched a computer really up to then. So talking about the power of the network, I had a friend who had an IT company in security, and I said, hey, buddy, can you teach me about computers over the weekend? I have a test translation to do. And he probably thought I was a little bit, let's say, over optimistic, but hey, he just showed me, opened computers, showed me motherboard, how peripherals, how all this stuff worked. And I did the test, and at the time, no Trados really, because I had no clue. So I had a technical dictionary. I handed the test very proudly, and I was called back the next day
Oh
to say
wow.
that I got the job. I got the job because of my spelling and grammar, not because of my subject matter expertise. Let's be very clear.
No, that's good.
And I got and there I had a little bit of luck, because the manager I got, and we're talking about teams and high performance team. The manager I got is still my friend to this day. She was amazing, and she said, I'm going to train you. And she literally came to work every day an hour before she was normally due to start, just to train me and teach me the ropes. And that's what got me going. And I will always be thankful to her for taking a chance in me. Because I was this international relations student who just said, what am I going to do, for a career? So I started there, and then because I was in a high growth company, it became Lionbridge. So that company got acquired by Lionbridge, and I got the chance of doing different jobs. So I did editing, I did testing, I did some engineering, I did project management, production management, all these jobs. And the reason I managed to do this is that my philosophy was raise your hand. Somebody
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
oh, who wants to help on this thing? I'm like, I'll do it. I'd be in the office on a Sunday. Not because there was a plan behind it, but because I liked it, and I thought, if I want to progress, now is the time. I'm a young professional. Let's just put all the energy in. So the really big plus there is that it gave me a real strong work discipline, but it also exposed me to so many jobs in the industry that I believe I kind of know what I'm talking about. Of course, some of my skills might be outdated, because I learned production back in the
I don't believe so. You
context.
always keep stuff you keep building upon,
The
right? So
concept, and the thing is that, and what was the turning point is that when I actually resigned from Lionbridge, because I got headhunted by a startup who wanted me to do sales, and they said, your profile, you're very commercial, you like clients.
you are
So
very commercial, and I love it. You are. I love it.
and yeah, because I like, but I like to help and solve and make somebody successful. So to me,
Yes.
it's all like you make the client successful, right? So I resigned, and to my great surprise, I got a call from the CEO at the time of Lionbridge, who said, Veronique, what are you doing? And I was like, well, why are you calling? He's calling me, like, what's going on? But it's because I knew him from him coming over to Dublin, and he would do like big speeches, and I would ask a question. So he knew my name, and he said, you should do a career in sales at Lionbridge. And this is how it kind of, there was a change moment in the career. And I ended up with a $2 million quota, a phone, and good luck. And the first year, I will remember very clearly, I brought in just short of $500,000, brand new, business. And I did that because I called everybody I knew. I need help. I went
Yeah.
I went to every opening of an envelope because I didn't know. I didn't have the skills. It was
Yeah.
very easy as a head of production to go to these meetings and meet the clients and find a solution. But finding the
Yeah.
client with the problem, it's a different ballgame. And you know what I'm talking about, Javi. You
Yeah.
did
Yeah. Yeah.
sales,
Yeah. Did you,
also,
when
and you did technology sales.
yeah, did you like one of the things that people have a lot of fear of, especially with sales or to sales, is like
Yeah.
that fear of rejection, like especially when you're starting, like you have to deal with that, right? Tell me a little bit about that. Did you have that
Oh
fear of
my God.
rejection?
You know what? You just cannot take that personally. I mean, you receive yourself so many solicitations in your inbox via LinkedIn, etc. I think I'm a decent person, so I don't always have the time, but I will try and answer, right? And say, hey, I'm not the right person, or I told this person, or no, thank you, whatever. I try because I know what it is to be on that other end and
If you,
reaching out.
I can show you my LinkedIn inbox here, and you can see that I've replied every message from solicitations.
Huh?
I do, because I
Because
am
you've
on
been
the
on
other.
the other side, right? You've
Yes,
been
no,
on
I
that
am on
side
the
where
other
you
side.
try,
Yeah, yeah. And
right?
that,
So
I
so
think that's
you
also
you try and help.
yes, it's I mean, sometimes the approach is bad, sometimes the approach is better, and I sometimes give feedback, right? But I think that's a great sign of being a good professional, understanding, being empathetic to the others. We all have our stuff, right? We all have our things, and we all have our things. But that's a good sign, right? Is that like so no fear of rejection, right? No, you never had that. You were not afraid
You know,
of.
I mean, it is not pleasant, but you know what? It's part and parcel of life,
Yeah,
not just sales. So you know what? I think that not to take it personally, to keep on going forward, and to savor the success, because at some point somebody said, you know what? I want to talk to you, and and when you have that client who trusts you, because it's about building trust, and you put the right teams together, and you serve them well, and you help them make successful, it erases all of that rejection because
yeah,
of that success.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
back in the day, I'm a terrible overachiever and a sore loser. I am not a pleasant person, for example, to play tennis with. I My husband and I, after we got married, we started tennis lessons together. He got way better than me. We went on a holiday. I broke a racket, and he said, "We will stop playing tennis. We will stay married." So that's how bad it is. Um, and but the thing is that not making that 2 million quota, I still
Yeah,
made the highest volume of new business of any of
yeah,
the salespeople at Lionbridge, but it was not good enough. And that would kind of got me to the next one. So then,
yeah,
so I became I became the top salesperson at Lionbridge, very successful. But why? Why? It's because actually the power of the team. I didn't do this by myself. I had amazing colleagues in operations, engineering, testing, finance, all of the department, and we were rowing in the same direction. And that was for me a big aha moment,
well,
because some of the colleagues in sales are like, yeah, I'm the sales guy, I'm the sales gal, and I know it. It's no, you're only as strong as your team, and that's something that I carried through after. So after this, my career, I continued in more sales management and marketing, management at global level. After Cambridge, I went to Moravia, and then I realized that one of my superpowers, if I can call it that way, was growth. And if I had to say like what kind of leader, I'm definitely a growth leader because I thrive on that. And but again, you cannot do this alone. So
yeah,
that was, so Moravia, we it was a smallish, that's not a company back in the day in Central Europe, and it became we built on what was there, a great company culture, a great desire to do right, and a lot of attributes. And there was actually a transformation there to really become a global player. So that was really exciting. And then my last two challenges, I took a challenge after that in Belgium, a company that was not doing so great.
yes,
And really there, the board, the management, the board actually had invested in the 90s in technology, and then turned into services, and the company was not going in the right direction. So I came in to see like how to really relook at the strategy, how to focus the business better, how to renew with profitability and growth. And then we did an exit. And then my last job, I was the CEO of Argos, and there it's been a great story, also a story of growth and development of services. So in the last kind of two jobs, I was CEO, and in terms of career progression, I felt that it was the right step because I could use a lot of the things I had built in the past and the skills, but also I I kind of like people. I like people, and I
yes.
like to, and I remember when I was leaving Moravia, I had a friend of mine who was a coach, and we were talking about kind of next steps, and he was saying maybe I can help you figure out what you want, right? And anyway, and through conversation, he said, yeah, this is what I see in you, is this profile of kind of general management where you can use all of these skills, and definitely a growth leader. So you need to go to organizations that have growth ambitions and are not afraid to change and evolve. And that's really been, yeah, it's been the last few years very exciting. But I think with leadership, you need to understand also your style. And that coach, he said to me this funny thing. He said, yeah, you're not the type to bring croissant to the office in the
I,
morning.
I
And
want
I
to
was a
ask
bit
you
like,
about that. Yeah,
yeah,
about precisely that thing that you just
yeah,
mentioned, like because you were telling us a little bit how you started. You just did a
yeah,
run
sure.
on your career, and if I think back, like
Yeah.
I'm in my early 40s now, and I'm studying in this, and in leading and all these things. But if I think back, like I can think of two experiences that I had with
Mhm.
leaders. One, when I first got to Germany, I lived in Germany 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and it was a leader, the boss, that was like the worst boss you could think of, because he was self-centered. He was like, in Spain we have this expression that says like, you drown in a glass of water, meaning like in any given problem, you just like, oh my god, it's a huge mess, it's a huge mess for the team, etc. And then I have like a mentor that I still, like a boss, first
Hmm.
boss, who I still call today when I go home to visit my family, right? 15 years ago. And that's great. And what I want to ask you about is like, can you remember those first leadership experiences? Do you remember any of those first mentors? Can you share with us some of those good and bad
Mm.
experiences you might have,
Sure.
without giving
Sure.
names? Eh? We
I
don't
have.
have to throw
No,
anybody
no,
under
no,
the
no, 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 but maybe the kind of the type of the type of kind of mentors or leaders that make
Yeah,
a difference. For sure, back in my Lion Bridge day, I had a direct boss,
yeah.
and I think what he did is that he gave me autonomy. He
Oh, okay.
trusted me. He would give me I mean that was a kind of a big deal because I was kind of really kind of young, young professional. So, but he was the one that sometimes I would see in the office on a Sunday. He was like, and I would say, hey, can I take this project? So he empowered me, and he definitely gave me opportunities. He would kind of say, hey, by the way, he was very casual. Say, hey, by the way, you're promoted. I'm like, what? I was like waiting for the meeting to tell you like all the great thing why I should be promoted. And he was like, nah, no, nah, you don't need to tell me. I can see. But he was also one that always took the time to listen. So that was like a great example. And I had an example also later when I started in that sales role, where unfortunately, I had a change of I had a manager remotely, and then a new manager came in, and there it was tough because that manager didn't believe in me, and I overheard that person say it, and that was
Oh,
rough. That was
that's
like,
rough.
she can't
Yeah.
scale, and when your boss says that, and I think that's the example that I want to bring in, is that if you don't want, I mean, your mission as a boss, as a leader, is to make your team successful.
Yes.
If that's not, I think that for me is the number one quality or let's say trait that you should be looking for in your manager or your boss. Is like that person wants you to be successful and will help you. We talk about servant leadership. I don't like that term servant. It kind of bothers me. I think that it's more enabler or whatever, empower, whatever you want to call it. But this kind of that your leader is not there to compete with you or to show you that he or she knows better than you, but there to say, I'm going to help you be the best that you can become. And I,
Yeah.
and I would say that these were these examples where I had bosses like this, and I had the very opposite. I had bosses that were competing, which didn't make sense to me, but c'est la vie.
Do you
And
remember a particular bad example? Because I can tell you, like I remember two particularly, one and a bad example. But
mhm.
let's hear yours if you remember, and I'll tell mine afterwards.
I remember an experience which actually got me to make a change in of companies because I was told that I overperformed and I didn't get compensated for the
Mm.
work. And I find that out kind of in January, and I'm like, oh, hold on a second here, that doesn't make sense. And it was like, oh no, but you sold way too much last year, and I thought that's wrong. That's wrong. That's
That's wrong.
completely demotivating. And that was, and you know what? It's not about the person. The circumstances might have been something that person may have been under pressure from his or her, but whatever. But I just felt like this is bad because it's just showing that you don't value the person working for you. So that was
Yeah, yeah,
that was a disappointing. And that was for me, it was like, okay, I need to change organizations.
yeah, 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 yeah,
What
yeah.
about you?
I remember, like one of the things that I was most of I think I get along with you very well because with both extroverts, we're both people person and stuff like that. But when I was in the early stages of my career and I was just out of law school and after my masters and stuff, one of the things that you know I was struggling with the most was maybe to gain confidence in, like, although I'm an extrovert, like on going
Hmm.
out there and expressing and showing the products that I was selling because I wasn't in the localization industry before, right? So I remember this story. This is 15 years ago with three of the colleagues. I was the intern, and the other two were like super young, also hires, and our boss, who's still my friend now. And we were in a meeting in a meeting room, sitting all the four of us, and talking about, do you know how good it is to approach people and to tell them how good they are? You know that the power. You know about the power of flattering? And I'm like, power of flattering? What the hell is that? So he starts telling me like, well, Javi, like this is like your 10th month as an intern here. And since you started, you've been growing so fast. You've been doing this, you've been doing that, you've been doing this. Now, there you go along to see the customers. And I'm surprised. And I was like, my eyes were like this. And my two colleagues start smiling their asses off. Ha, 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 until he stops. Oh, this wasn't true. And then it was like a joke, but as an example on that, on one, I precisely wrote about this today on yesterday on LinkedIn about how to
Mm-hmm.
open conversations and how to get connected with people, right? Because
Right.
we all appreciate that, right? So that was a good example, and I still remember it now, 15 years ago, right? How they were saying,
And imagine it's 15 years ago, you remember it. This story I just mentioned to you is also something like probably 15
yeah,
years ago. I think that you get marked by this. But no matter what, in work, in life, authenticity, people know if you're
yeah,
genuine or not. People can feel it. People and you were mentioning also, confidence, and you can project confidence. I think that when whatever role you have to have self-belief. You were mentioning rejection before in sales. You got to believe in yourself. That's
yeah,
something that you have to work on, because your belief is not made from what people think of you. It's what you build yourself. And sometimes, yeah, but a great boss, will help you progress.
yeah.
And there's this saying that people don't quit because of whatever problem, whatever. They quit because of their bosses. And
The
that
boss.
I remember, because if I look back and I'm like, who quit, who was in my team? Well, I have to say I haven't had anybody quit now in years. And I think that that's good. Or else, if somebody wanted to go, I would know about it. You have this openness about it. Again, being genuine goes a long way.
Being genuine, I love it. Being genuine, like, I mean, sharing and connecting, and then
Yeah.
helping others go forward in their careers at whatever moment they are, right? It's something that, like, I wish everybody put more focus on. I wish we put full focus on that as professionals in our personal
Mhm.
lives as well, to do that, to help others, right? Let me ask you another thing, Veronique.
Mhm.
You told us about all these experiences in your start of your
Mhm.
career, from the moment you were a failed diplomatic career, which I also had a year of. My first internship was in the trade commission of the embassy of Spain back.
Oh.
Before that. I've also had my stuff in the US, right? And then you moved on in your career. You transition now to
Mhm.
being, I mean, to being a CEO. And I want to know a little bit about that moment. And I think, like, what I would like to you to share with us, if possible. Like, you got that role. Like, it's like, oh my God, what is this? What am I facing now? Is it what are the big
Yeah.
challenges? How was that day? How was that?
So you have of course, you have a moment where you say, oh wow, this is great. So you have a moment of joy in it, and then you very quickly say, that's a big responsibility. And I think that it's sometimes underestimated, because people look to you to lead, but you cannot lead alone. I mean, you need to lead, and you need to show that you can lead. So how did I approach that? I do have a Cartesian mind, so I tend to be structured, right? And even the creative part and everything, of course, it comes into play. But I tend to say, okay, what needs to happen in the next 90, 180? So that's how I approached it. I kind of looked at the situation. I get input. I'm a very, I believe, collaborative person. I don't just sit in my office and make decisions. I listen. I call this the helicopter. Very important, I believe, which is that you lead, so you have to kind of stay up there, right? But you need to land that helicopter and listen to people.
Hmm.
You need to go to clients so that they tell you, you hear it directly from them, because that's going to help you decide on some strategic direction that you may take. So that helicopter, and then breaking. So getting that information, but then breaking it down. So the way I've always approached it is kind of look at the organization that I'm being asked to lead and identify what is it we want to accomplish. So getting this kind of umbrella or big picture and then breaking it down. The second thing, which is very important, is to tell people and share with people what we're going to do together. And when it comes to styles of leadership, you've got different styles, right? I have what is called, my predominant style is called authoritative. And authoritative doesn't mean autocratic, not at all. Authoritative means that you consult, you figure things out, you have a vision, then you share it, and you ask people, will you follow me? Shall we do this together? This is
Yeah.
authoritative style. And then you bring in different aspects. If things go bad, you need to be affiliated. You switch. But in terms of like the roadmap, for me, it's always been kind of looking at the organization, understanding where it wants to go, where you want to bring that organization, right? And then breaking it down, sharing that project, and then spreading it in the organization
Yeah.
by, we're talking about empowerment, having initiative where actually everybody has the opportunity to participate to this initiative, because
Yeah.
that's very powerful. You get the
I
buy-in.
was
So
I was
kind
specifically
of,
going to ask you about that, about which principles did you follow, which techniques did you follow to, to push down those ideas, to communicate, push down, not to
yeah.
communicate on those ideas and make sure, hey, are you there with us?
Yeah. And what I believe that this transparency, this sharing is very important with people. So, in past job, I would have a monthly call, and we would actually go through results, and we would go through our strategic plan, and always keeping it simple. So, for example, you may have 3 strategic pillars. Everybody should know about this, and we would run surveys, and sometimes we say, oh, people don't know about it. So we need, let's make sure all these bases. It's like when you're building a house, it's like making sure the foundations are solid. This is all where you should always start, and then you build on it. And of course, things will change. I think this is the big thing in the 21st century, is that as a leader, things change all the time. We've had COVID, we've had wars, we've had supply chain disruption. Gen AI, whatever. So you need to be very adaptive, and you need to be very clear with people to say, even in bad times, hey, we've had a tough whatever months or something happen, share it, and then don't just stay in emotion, say, and this is what we're doing about it. And
Hey,
then I
and
think that that you get people behind you.
I just read yesterday the results of the NIMSI 100 list of LSPs, the pre-list that they released, and like Argos was one of the few companies at that mid-sized LSP level that really grew from last year. So congratulations on that, because
Yeah,
uh,
growth, but yeah, it's
I mean,
growth is
basically,
something
we
that
record. Yeah, sorry. Just to say that
yeah.
we, like, to put people in context, we're recording this podcast in March 24. It's a year and a half, a little bit after the explosion of OpenAI for everybody, and the transformative, the fear we've been through, and all that stuff, right? And it's been a moment of flexibility and change, as you just said, right? It has to be. So in that panorama, like the results are there of your leadership
And
style, right?
Javier, also, Avi, like the growth, if you choose that, it's tough, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also kind of a luxury challenge, because you can always figure it out, right? You give people more opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes, you have challenges, but it's also, if you think about growth of your employees, of your colleagues, as they work on things that are bigger, more complex, more sophisticated, they develop their skills. So I think there's a lot of benefits in growth. It's, that doesn't mean it's easy. And you know what? You're going to have setbacks, and you're going to have a year where it's being tough. But if you, again, are transparent about this and say, this is what we're doing about it. And if you also are accountable, say, hands up, we made a mistake. You can make mistakes. You will make mistakes.
You really
But to
do.
say, you know what? This was like, let's say you start a division in, I don't know, you're going to sell coffee or something, and it's like not really in your core business, and that's not going to take off. And you say, well, you know what, we shouldn't sell coffee. That was not, we thought that was a great idea, but we're not going to be the next big
Yeah.
coffee chain in the world.
It's always everybody like does it on here's a better question. It's like about the growth mindset. Like you can see it in most of the professionals, right? But other people that like more stability, maybe that's like, I'm not, or depending on the moment of the career, I am like, what growth do I need now? Maybe I'm at the end of my career. How do we cope with those things? How do we do that? That's a
Right.
question, right?
That's a really good question. I mean, everybody is different in their in a stage of their lives or what they like, etc. I would say that generally, there's a feeling of pride as an organization goes from strength to strength. So even if you may not be someone in the organization who like is like so excited by that, you know, your work being recognized, your contribution being recognized, I would find it hard for anybody not to appreciate that his or her, you know, contribution is appreciated. And in a kind of a setting of a growth, you know, of growth, everybody matters and everybody has a contribution. I think
Hmm.
that that's, you know, you may not be jumping for joy for it, but hey, if people recognize your contribution, I think it's important. And it's back to, you know, you were asking about this kind of empowering and front lines.
Hmm.
This is the key, in my opinion. You need to give that power to the front lines and give them initiatives. And people might just drag their feet, say, "I don't have time," etc. But when they see that the initiative they're doing with their colleagues is starting to bear fruit, I'll tell you, they raise their hand and say, "You know what? I'll do the next one." So it's just kind of getting people in that story and getting them excited about it, and also back to kind of, you know, rejection, also accepting that not everybody will want it. Not
Hmm.
everybody has to be like you. I think that is one big lesson that I learned, is that I naturally gravitated towards people with certain characteristics. And I learned to be very careful about that and
Yeah.
to make a conscious, you know, decision to spend more time with people who are not like me at all.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's great. That's very interesting. That's very good that you say that. That's very good, because the next thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I promised to the audience today
Mm-hmm.
that people will learn a little bit about high performance teams, right? What, like a
Mm-hmm.
team is like, you know, let's put it
Yeah.
to the context of football, which is the thing I like the most probably. And it's like the team, you have to play with a goalkeeper, with defense, with middle field, with attack. Like the attack might be super looking forward and bringing achievements, and the defense might be more like conservative, whatever, right? Because they have certain different roles, right? For example, and you just mentioned it, building a team or a high performance team is going to require to put together the structure of defense, of middle field, and of forwards, right, of strikers, right? First of all, let's define what a high performance team is. Like, can you help me define that? Can you help us define that, given these things, and then jumping into that?
In my opinion, a high performing team has got two or three characteristics. The first one is that they are aligned on the end goal, on what they want to achieve. And you kind of make it very clear of what's going to be achieved and what, you know, how they will be measured around that, right? This common goal. So if you align the goal, so if, let's say, sales is compensated on revenue, but operations compensated on profit, and that's not a line, you know, that's like the $100 million question, right? That is not. So the alignment for sure in a highly performing team is there. The second thing is tolerance for mistake, provided there is an accountability. One thing
Mhm.
that I think is really bad in a team is that a mistake, oh, there will always be a mistake made, but nobody wants to take responsibility, or they blame the others. That is not team spirit. So this accountability, I think, is really important, and say, you know what, hey, my fault, messed up, but this is how we're going to fix it together. That's I think that's the second big thing: common goal and then accountability. And I would say the third aspect of a high performing team is the adaptability, being able to course correct, to change, to, you know, because if you think, you know, how many times have you heard like, oh, we've always done it that way?
Oh,
That's the way we do things here. Well, you know,
and
is not a reason then to change it.
yeah, yeah, and especially like you hear this a lot in the localization industry, right?
Sure.
Which there's a lot of us, particularly, for example, us at Bureau Wars, we try to lead with the AI and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
reluctancy yet, right? There's a lot,
Of
you hear a
course.
lot of reluctancy, a lot of, like, people say, hey, why am I gonna change? Why am I gonna change now? That's difficult, right? This requires, you know, that those things that you mentioned. You've been always talking about flexibility, and I love it. I am a millennial myself. I If I wouldn't have
Right.
been flexible, I couldn't be here today, right?
And
After all of this,
and change is hard. I mean, change is hard.
yes, yeah.
And But I think that you got to peel that onion and understand why is there that reluctance to change. Why is there this? Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's, you know, culturally You need to do, evolve the culture for people to be more comfortable. So that is definitely this adaptability. That is one big characteristic, in my opinion, of high performing teams.
Wow, wow. I really like that you say that you said, and I want to stick a little bit now in my next question to the football analogy, right? If you know a little bit about football, like there's always big
Hey,
planification.
I'm French. We want. I mean,
Yeah, what am I gonna tell you,
Okay,
right?
Mbappe.
No, no Mbappe because he's going to Madrid, and I'm a Barca fan, not here in this house. Eh?
Okay. So we'll erase this from the podcast. Okay, we don't go there.
So I love it, Veronique. Like sticking to the football analogy, like I want to ask you a question. Like if you know in big football clubs, there's always big planification. There's a sports director. There's
Yeah,
this, and that who says like, okay, we're gonna we're gonna buy this defender. We're gonna sell this middle fielder. We're
yeah.
gonna buy this striker, right, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so putting that back to our little world of globalization and localization, and in terms of building those teams, right? What are those? Or can you name some specific strategies that you found particularly effective in building those teams, given the
Mm,
flexibility, all these aspects that we've been talking about, right?
right. Some of the things that work, I believe, is actually to put together teams that are not sitting in the same place and
Okay.
enhancing collaboration by actually having people from different locations coming together and working on a common project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, second thing is that you do need some structure. So you do need a leader, but that leader needs to be very much a team player.
Yeah.
I mean, back to the football, if you had, I don't know, if it's only Messi or Mbappe or whatever, like superstar football or Ronaldo, and alone,
Yeah.
that player is not enough. And
Yeah.
the actual alchemy the player will have with the rest of the team is very important. So in assembling team, I think it's important to look at the different characteristics of the team members and have a good mix. You don't want everybody to be very similar. So having this balance and different competence coming into the mix is also very important. And then the third thing is like the fire in the belly of the motivation of the team, that you need to be able to assess that this team want, they will be proud to achieve their goals. So that
Yeah.
kind of emotional aspect. So that would be the kind of three things in assembling teams. And I have been amazed, in my past job at Argos, I have been
Yeah.
amazed at what the teams have done, in areas like human resource, in collaboration, in process improvement, and that was on the back of interviewing people, understanding what the issues were that they saw, and say, okay, you're going to be part of the solution then, and
Okay.
assembling those teams.
Okay. That's great. That's great. That's great. What is? Can you name like without giving names, your biggest success story, or and also your biggest failure story? Let's name both. Let's say one of those things that you say, okay, I
Right.
failed big time,
Okay.
but I've learned my lesson, or I succeeded
Right.
big
Right.
time, and I've also learned my lesson.
Um, right. So I think biggest success story. I think it's maybe in my last job at Argos. I think it's been a great success to evolve the business and transform the company into a global content services company, from pure localization to be able to diversify the services and bring a lot of innovation and value to clients. To me, that's been a great journey, and it's also enable the company to grow not just in terms of financial, but also in terms of its staff, and it became a very global company with people literally from the West Coast to Australia. So that to me has been a great success, and something I really look at, in a very fun way. Biggest failure, I don't know. I think that of course, you will always have a train wreck. You will always have, like, I remember in a previous company, I started and I brought a very big client straight away, and that was an absolute disaster. And I just, like, to this day, I was like, oh my goodness. And I felt like, should I have been more behind it? Should I, and I was going to operations, say, everything okay? Yeah, don't come here. We're all fine. And then, when it was like egg on the face, it was like, oh, can you go to the client and say sorry? So this, to me, that was a tough one to swallow. But I think that these things may happen, and you move on. I do think that maybe for me, something that I realize, and I don't think I will fix myself about this, is that I'm a trusting person. So I tend to work on trust, and sometimes I've been very disappointed that I just think that people don't always work on these values. And that's been something where, you trust somebody and you give them, a lot of help and support. And then something happens and you're like, really? That, I think on one of your podcasts, you had Isabelle Andrieux, and she mentioned like all of
Yeah,
these developers walking away, after, a big thing. And I was thinking, when I was listening to the podcast about it, and I say, yeah, this is tough. This is tough because you give your 100% and you don't get that back. I think that, but that's it. This is also life, huh? So,
yeah, and
but
as I guess a
the good
business
thing is
owner,
that,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, as a
yeah,
business owner, but also I think in life we also experience that. But and I think that's very important is that what you learn though is that there will be people that you could trust with your eyes closed, and these people will stay with you in life, will stay with you in business. And I think, and then it's like making the best friend. Your best friend shouldn't just be there to go to the football match and have fun and have a few beers, right? Your best friend should be there when things are tough. And I think with trust, it's a very it's a very similar thing.
yeah. That's that. I have a very particular vision. I have a and very similar to you as well, right? Yeah. The example that you were naming about Isabel when she came into the podcast, and I was commenting on it because I think that when you're the business owner, like things
Yeah.
really gain another perspective, right? Because it's
Yeah,
your thing as
and
well, right?
yeah, and I think that like if you're a CEO of a company, or if you like, I think we underestimate how much people care about their company they work for, because very much you do. It's a bit like your baby in a way, because you give it your 100%. So there's a strong, there's a strong sense there. As a business owner, however, I mean, you've got that extra layer of responsibility, which is which can be extremely stressful, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Talk
I
about
like
resilience, yeah.
talk about resilience. Yeah, I like Veronique. I have enjoyed the conversation with you today so much, and I've learned so much. And I think you've shared brilliant examples, brilliant principles, and maybe other leaders that come to the podcast will come and repeat those values that you've lived that you shared today here with. But I believe that the repetition of good things will help the world be better. So I am extremely thankful for you to come here and do this. But before we say bye for today, I want to ask you, and as a closing of the of
Mhm.
this brilliant experience that you've shared with us today, can you share, like, imagine that somebody that is just recently started in a leadership role is a little bit lost, or because you know how these things go, like suddenly
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
you have a certain role and leadership comes to you, it's like you are now the team lead. Oh
Mhm.
my god, I
Mhm.
have no
Right.
idea, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to
Right.
do. So before we go, I would be super happy if you could share with us some
Mhm.
advice to those who are starting and to those who are like or struggling with leading teams.
I would have only one piece of advice, and it's to say you're not alone. Reach out, and that might be you reach out to an industry peer to get yourself a mentor or a coach. I mean, I would say don't try and figure it all out by yourself. There's plenty of people who will want to help you and support you and impart some of the things that they've experienced. Sometimes it can feel very lonely, but again, back to like these really trusted advisors that you can have in your circle, they will help you, and nothing is unsurmountable. For every problem there will always be a solution.
I couldn't agree more with you. Go out there, ask, and for that also, if I can give
Yeah.
a tip, have a good network, create a good network. So,
Yeah, it's, I mean, you're only as good as the people around you. That's just it's a
correct.
reality.
Correct. And then those problems, and I believe also when problems come in, not only in work but in life, those people that you
Yeah.
have, that you know that if you have close people that you can reach out to
Yeah.
when there's, it's great, right? And unfortunately not everybody does. So I hope people have
Me too.
taken your advice today. I hope our friends have listened to all the beautiful stories you've shared today. I've learned a lot. I have learned a lot, and I mean, I have you on my
I've
team.
had such a great time. Thank you. I
Really?
mean, Javier, it was just so much fun. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Like when you step into your next role, promise me you'll come back and you tell me a little bit more about the successes you've
Let's
implemented,
let's have a
successes and
follow up, and
failures.
we are going to go and watch a football match one of these days, right?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Anytime you want, anytime you want. I am a big,
Brilliant.
extremely Barca fan, so
Yeah, yes, yes. I visited the stadium there and everything. Yeah, it is like it's awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Veronique, it's been a real pleasure. I want to say thanks to you. I want to say thanks to everybody that is listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of Merging Minds powered by ViewWorks. Thanks, and bye
Thank you,
bye.
Javier. Bye, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.